Let's move on. I want to touch on a quote from Paul in his Caveman book. And this is relevant to the point that was raised earlier about what was the cognitive capacity of people thousands of years ago. Did people live in a sort of primitive lifestyle that was only emerged out of through successive discoveries over long periods of time in regards to technology and how to use the world around them? And Paul would say no, and I would say no, and I think that we had the same intelligence back then that we do now. We've learned things over time, obviously, and knowledge has been passed down. But I think he has a good explanation for the contrast of supposedly cavemen with more supposedly advanced people from later on. And I'm going to read a quote and I'll let Paul comment on it. The quote is this: migration from the plain of Shinar after the Babel incident provides the context for understanding the fossil and archaeological record of humans. No doubt Noah and his family preserved a great deal of technical knowledge from before the flood. We can assume that they would have passed this on to their descendants so that the people at Shinar would have possessed a wide range of skills. But when the tribes began to migrate from Shinar, each took with them only a part of that knowledge. If we go forward, Paul has, try to imagine what life must have been like for these families. It is likely that they would have been forced to adopt a quote-unquote primitive lifestyle. Before they were able to find bodies of ore and extract metals from them, they probably turned to stone tools. Before they were able to settle down and build cities, they probably sought shelter in caves and tents. Before they were able to manipulate their environment and to become farmers, they probably survived by hunting and gathering. In other words, these pioneers would have lived as we know the quote-unquote old Stone Age people did, but over time there would have been a general transition to more advanced cultures, explaining the progression in the archaeological record from quote-unquote old Stone Age cultures to new Stone Age cultures and beyond. And going on, Paul has, this transition may have taken place quite quickly, perhaps within a few hundred years at most. Conventional dating schemes suggest that these stages lasted thousands of years, but there are reasons to think that the time scale is much shorter. Consider, for example, the low frequency of human fossils. Human fossil remains from the quote-unquote old Stone Age are sparse, even allowing for the vagaries of preservation and discovery. The low population numbers we can infer from the fossil record fit a short time scale better than a long one. In Britain, for instance, there are only a handful of dwelling sites and virtually no human fossils for what, in the conventional view, represents the first 100,000 years of human occupation, a period 20 times the length of recorded history. We find a similar picture throughout Europe. This suggests that the conventional time scale is inflated and the actual period represented by these fossils was much shorter. Another point to consider is the persistence of stone tool technologies. Thank you for writing this part, and if there's something you want to add to it, feel free, because I think it's great.
Well, only to say that it does sort of fit in quite well with what we said earlier about human population growth estimates. We see a very low, sparse sort of human record, both in terms of fossil remains, burial sites, and so on. And also, the other sort of related point that I also mentioned in that chapter is about stone tool technologies. So we find that stone tool technologies appear quite suddenly. They'll appear in a fully developed form. They'll persist without much change for long periods of time, according to the conventional dates, and then all of a sudden they'll be replaced by a succeeding technology. And that doesn't really, to me, make very much sense, because we've already talked about the cognitive abilities of these people. Some of these stone tool technologies are really quite complex, and if they can develop these stone tool technologies, why then does the technology appear to stagnate for so long, only to then suddenly abruptly be replaced by another technology? It suggests to me that the time scale that we're talking about has been overinflated, and that we need to kind of telescope this time scale down. Maybe these stone tool technologies are persisting for, I don't know, months, years, decades perhaps, but to suggest that they're persisting for thousands of years without change and then suddenly being replaced to me, it doesn't seem consistent with what we know about the cognitive abilities of these people.
Thank you for listening. Credible Faith is a global missions-minded apologetics ministry with content available in 7 different languages across 7 websites: German, Russian, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. If you would like to support the global apologetics work of Credible Faith, go to crediblefaith.org and click on the donate icon. If you would like me to give an apologetics workshop or participate in a debate at your university, or if you would like me to give a Great Commission missions conference or apologetics conference at your church, get in touch with me through the Contact Us section of the Credible Faith website. You can also submit a request through the website to get Credible Faith's monthly email. If you are a native speaker of Russian, German, Italian, French, Spanish, or Portuguese, and if you notice that an essay from the English website is not available on the Credible Faith website for your language, feel free to get in touch with me about translating the essay, and I would read through your translated material for quality control and the desire to see content from the essay made available in your language. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.